disconnected from source, there's a certain level of sadness, I think, from my perspective. Anyway, I digress, and we're going to be getting into that. So back to unitedintention.org. We got a lot going on. If you are in that fear mode, in that lower vibration mode, go on unitedintention.org and start doing your daily practice, acts of kindness, witnessing, receiving, showing. Do your acts of gratitude, your acts of healing requests, laughter, acts of laughter. What are you laughing about? How are you raising your vibration every day? Creating intentions. Go online, learn how to create intentions with your friends and new friends, and share and help manifest your intentions together. And the biggest thing is that we're pushing this year is our United Intentions Imagine If program. And Jennifer's going to tell you all about what's going on with that.
Well, we're basically on a crusade and a mission to change our educational system and teach and empower kids and teach them that they have the ability to create the reality around them through their thoughts, and just give them a daily practice like we talk about on our site. We do it with grades 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and 7 through 12. Make it very easy and simple for teachers as well.
All right.
So,
and we have a summer program coming up.
we're going to have a summer camp from June 26th to June 30th. So if you want to join us, just email contact@uieducation.org.
And for the first time, if you haven't, let your kids learn how they could create their own reality by understanding their perception, what's going on, and how they can shift their perception to change with their experience if they choose to.
I have the coolest science experiment for that too that I'm going to do with the kids.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, don't tell everybody.
I'm not going to tell them.
Let them
You have
tease
to
them.
come and
Tease
see
them.
it.
All right. All right. With that said, let's get to the show. All right. Jennifer is going to, if you guys are online on Spreaker or on Facebook and you want comments or questions, Jennifer's going to be reacting to you guys today. So just start typing in your questions or making your comments on Facebook Live or Spreaker Live. I guess that's what it's called, right? All right. Yeah. Spreaker chat. And I think also, Jesse, you can do it on Instagram too. You're recording some, maybe not live, but you're recording. So if you have questions, just start posting on our site, right? Yeah. All right. So without further ado, let's talk about the man of the hour, I should say. Michael Monk is a self-taught healer and energy master. He's a Rhodes Scholar, ROAD Rhodes Scholar. You know, those are the best ones with the real experience. And he's not out just to tell you, he's not commercialized, I guess is my point. After many unexplainable, miraculous happenings in his life, he isolated himself from 2008 to 2011 to study prayer, meditate in order to understand the mechanisms behind what he experienced. This led him to understanding of energy mastery and founding of Avatar Energy Master Institute, where he offers online healing and teaching of all that he knows. And you can reach him at avatarenergymaster.com. avatarenergymaster.com. Michael Monk, welcome back. How you doing, brother?
Thanks, Tim. Glad to be here. Doing great. Hello, Don.
Hello, Michael. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right. So let's just jump right into it. I mean, let's jump into understanding. Let's get Michael Monk's understanding of religions and perhaps of angels, good angels, bad angels. Or good aliens, bad aliens. How does Michael Monk define this other outside our frequency entities? Let's just say that word, or other beings.
Okay. Well, it's a very vast topic. So the less specific your questions, the more. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours and hours. So yeah. If I start to get a little bit far out, rein me in with some tighter questions.
Well, let me tighten up right now. Do you believe that we are these other beings that we are dealing with? Do you define them? Does Michael Monk define them as aliens or angels, whether they're good or bad?
Well, it's pretty much the same thing. It's more like how we as humanity define them, how each individual person. The key thing, the biggest thing to understand is that here on Earth in the physical body, we're in finite reality. So there's a linear timeline, there's a preset way of how everything operates here, and that's a pre-designed pattern that's governed by the electrical system of the body, like we talked about on the last show. When you incarnate into a body, you take your free-flowing, multidimensional consciousness and you fuse it to the electrical system, the nervous system of the body, which has a preset pattern, which pretty much forces your consciousness to experience this linear, preset, or finite reality. Once you begin to experience beyond that, You're no longer governed by the electrical system of the body entirely. There's different ranges of it, but you start to enter into infinite reality or infinite reality. And that infinite reality is every possibility and every probability all happening simultaneously. So there's no such thing as not real when you're in infinite reality, and there's really no way to define that. So we've been so used to having a finite system of reality that as we open up to spirit, as we open up to this stuff, we pretty much expect that there's going to be a preset way that spirit or that soul operates, and there really isn't. It's infinite. Like every possibility, every probability, all happening simultaneously. Anything that you can imagine is real on some level, even if you just created it on the spot with your imagination.
So this finite defining of our reality has been passed on from generation to generation, more so, because I'm sure when you're born, we just don't wake up and say, "Wow, I understand reality." It's more so it's a conditioning, a programming, a mind control, let's say, if you will, of you're brought up in a Catholic family. You go to church and you read the Bible, and this is what it says, or this is how the priest interprets it, and this is what you're supposed to believe, and that gets kind of through the neural pathways on a regular basis becomes your reality because your brain is familiar with that information. That's the coding of it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's occurring in all different religions, all different perspectives, and so you're looking at majority of the people in this world, out of, I don't know what we're up to, 7 billion now, 8 billion yet, that we're all have our own definitions instilled in us of our defining of reality. So I guess my question to you is, how do you unplug from that matrix if everyone individual has their own definition of the defined reality, in the finite reality? How do you unplug from that in a healthy way where you could have a more of an infinite definition of reality?
It's slowly, one step at a time, and just having experience after experience and lining up the data or getting to hear from people that already have can put you on a path of a massive shortcut. And that's a great way that I can aid people in that way, because I've literally been through hell, been through all sorts of stuff, piecing this together, figuring it out, and it's not easy. It's not, we're used to being finite creatures, and as you open up to this, it's very hard to keep your to keep at least what people would call sanity. I mean, sanity to me now means your ability to communicate or relate to people that are not having the same experience as you. If you can maintain that ability to communicate and relate, then you're sane, because you got to change your definitions of what sanity is once you're opened up in this way, and that to me is what it is. Another important thing to understand is we are creators, and we're capable of creating with thought, with clairvoyance, which is the ability to see in spirit, to actually see energy. You can look at a person while they're having a thought, and energy accumulates like right there in their head, and it has a color, a frequency, a vibration, and then when they release that thought, it drifts out and it coagulates and forms into an orb of energy. It takes on form. So thoughts have form, and you can literally say that every thought you have ends up becoming a spirit. It individualizes into an orb, into a round shape. And here in the physical reality, it's not very real, compared to us. It is real. There's no such thing as not real, but the density of energy behind a thought form from the human body is not nearly as solid or physical as real as this physical earth is. It's in a lighter energy. So it depends on the standpoint that you're in as to how you're going to experience. So here on Earth, most spirits go unnoticed, because there's such a light energy that we can't feel them.
And I want to get into that too, because I found that very fascinating. And probably what you're referring to is how thought forms, our ability as creators, we create thought forms, and they go to a different dimension or a different frequency. For example, perhaps one of the definitions, we have different types, but one of the simpler ones, I should say, and they call it online, they call it etheric parasites, where these thought forms go to an etheric field, even though it's not in our reality, but it's in another reality. And I assume you're referring to when you do, or you're a creator, we create a thought, it may not manifest in this three-dimensional world or reality, but it will manifest in another reality or another, they
Right.
call the etheric world or etheric reality.
Yes, exactly, and it's important to understand, because I think when people hear that, okay, it doesn't manifest in this world, it manifests in another reality, they're still thinking in terms of distance, like it's somewhere way off there, but it's actually right here. The only difference between this reality and all others is the frequency of energy that my senses are currently tuned into. They're all right here. Every single reality that there is right here, on top of each other.
And people like you who have this sixth sense, who could pick up on these other or this present reality or the other realities, has the skill set to be able to say, you know what, I could see or I sense or I feel whatever your clairvoyance is. You sense that that issue in that reality, where people who are more 5th century human beings or living in more 5th century reality, like most of us out here, have to, basically defer to you on what's kind of going on in these other realities. People like yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Until they open up, connect, and begin to have the ability to have their own experiences. So, yeah, let's say that right now I have a very dark, negative thought. That's going to individualize into an orb, and it's literally going to become a parasite, a demon, if you want to use ancient terminology, and it's going to be hanging out in my soul energy field, not in the 3D reality where others can see it, but it's going to be in my energy field and affecting me. It's a part of my being. I created it. It's a thought form that I made. It's an extension of myself. Now, compared to the physical body, it's not very real. It's just a very light, wispy energy that my head formed. And so from this point of view, it's only a tiny little light orb of energy that could barely even, mess with me, except maybe to drag me down or cause me to think negative thoughts. However, if I'm not in my body, if I'm projected out of my body, I could actually go into that orb and experience it as a whole world. Like I would see it as being a whole world, a negative hell world. I could meet the being within there and see it as a big, raging, muscle-bound demon of vast proportions.
That you
But
created.
It's
that
just
you
illusion.
created.
Yeah,
That you
right.
created.
Mm-hmm.
That came from
Yep,
you.
compared to me, it's a wispy, light little spirit.
Yeah.
But if I'm in spirit myself, then it can appear to be just as real as I am. And if I'm not aware, if I'm not a metaphysical understanding energy master, and I just spontaneously have this experience, I'd be like, oh my God, I mean, there's these horrible beings on the other side of reality that are hell-bent on torturing us. And I think this is how a lot got trickled down through the years and through religions, was people having these types of experiences without the full metaphysical understanding. And so they create dogma, they create, false, or not false, because, it's real, just inaccurate interpretations that paint a picture of powerlessness for humanity, as though there's these vast, all-powerful negative forces that can see through time and space that are just hell-bent on wrecking our lives. I mean, if that was the truth, we wouldn't stand a chance.
It's our own Frankenstein, really. We don't realize we created the Frankenstein. Boy, gives a whole other meaning to the movie Frankenstein, doesn't? Your own creation, right? What have I done, right? But it is, and I think if you did, like you said, if you had the full metaphysical, I don't know what the right word is, proper interpretation of what just occurred, you would perhaps maybe you could appreciate that energy that you created, and not to be so fear-based of it. You could see it for what it is. It was just a dark thought, or a negative thought that manifested into a thought form in another dimension around you, and you have the power. If you had the power to create it, then you have the power to take it away.
Yes. I believe in integration. That's the path that I teach most for protection against this type of stuff, because it's the most effective. If you go into warrior mode or protection mode, you start putting up shields, you start fighting, then you keep adhering to this idea that it's separate from you, that you didn't create it, that it's not a part of your being. So that keeps externalizing it more and more and more. It keeps it at a variant frequency from your core self, so that it's vibrating in contrast to the core of your being, which means it can cause friction. So it can cause thoughts that you don't want to have. It can cause nasty feeling energy that you don't want to feel. So the thing to do is to open your heart wide, realize that it's an extension of yourself, and apply love. Love, in a very, very basic sense, is the energy behind gravity. It's the very basic desire of one particle of consciousness to be close to other particles of consciousness. It creates a biomagnetic energy, an inward force. So you recognize this negative energy, this negative entity, this demon. You open up your heart, you love it, accept it as a part of the self, and it rushes right into you and disperses through your being and just becomes a part of the whole. So it no longer exists anymore as a separate individual discordant manifestation. It just comes right back into your being and becomes a part of your love.
And see, that could scare a lot of people just by saying that alone, because a lot of people could probably misinterpret that and be like, well, you're invoking a demon into your soul. But again, they'd first disconnect. They would not realize for them to believe that, they would have to believe that they didn't create it.
Right.
Yeah. So we have a real quick question on speaker. The person said, can you define entities? But we will. And in fact, I have a list of a few different ones. And my next question to Michael is, there seems to be a definition of different type of entities: parasitical, discarnated humans, aliens, demonic ones, and seems to be different levels and different structures and hierarchies of this as well. And we're going to get into that today. So we definitely will be defining that, Mountaineer. But I want to ask just another question here in reference to where you're going with this, because if we have that power of creating on an individual basis, I should say co-creating, because other people are co-creating these things too. And we create all our demons, what you're saying. You're saying there's no exception. We create all our demons. There's no separate entity of demons out there, or is there?
Well, you can. Most of the demons that we experience here on Earth are thought formed by your own self, but we can pick up other people's negative energy. We can pick up through empathy, through connection. Our demons can transfer to other people, so we can pick them up from other people. And we're not the only species of consciousness in the multiverse, so we can pick up negative entities, negative energy from any different variant species out there. Now, it's important to understand that there's no such thing as dark souls. And this will sort of prematurely get us into the definitions, but a soul is a centralized source, or let's start over.
Okay.
There's spirits, and spirits are an aspect of a soul. A spirit knows itself as being one thing, like the spirit of a deer, the spirit of a plant, the spirit of a human being. A spirit knows itself as being a manifestation of one thing and is sourced by a soul. A soul knows itself as being many, many beings all simultaneously and has the ability to create spirits. So there's no such thing as a dark soul. Any being that's more evolved or a little further down the road than we are as humanity, there's no negativity in them. So that should be a big relief for a lot of people.
It is. They're just disconnected from source. That's right. That's all. More so.
And that's spirit. A spirit doesn't know itself as being one with source yet. So once you're one with the source, you connect into the multiplicity of your being. You become a soul. So a spirit is an aspect of a soul, and a soul is centralized and unified with source. So there's no such thing as a being that's more powerful, more omnipresent than humanity is, that's hell-bent on our destruction or dragging us down. These are all remnant energies of mismanifested thought from various, from the self, from other people on the planet.
That's a relief.
Or any other collectives that you're tapped into.
Aren't you relieved to know that? I mean, I am, right? But I mean, I believe that, and I totally with you on that, Michael. I'm glad you clarified that. And before we get into defining more of the different levels and different types of entities, which we will, guys. So stay tuned. This is gonna be a great show. This is gonna be one of a kind shows. And but first, let's incorporate the collective consciousness with the individual ability to create your own negative thought forms or even positive thought forms. And how
Hmm.
does the like, for example, like we opened up with Emily, the exorcism Emily Rose, and there's a collective consciousness right now who's been exposed to that movie or who already kind of have this. There's a common theme. There's this there's this induction process, obsession process, or if you will, and eventually to a possession process. That seems pretty common threads of step by step by step. When for example, jump to a demonic attachment, goes through this process. And it seems like that's not just unique individually to my experience. That seems to be more of a collective, a conscious belief. That's how some of these entities operate. There's certain definitions and hierarchies and job descriptions of
Hmm.
some of these things. So how does your individual belief with your that we create, or like you said, most thought forms, how does the collective consciousness thought forms that it creates, or does it create on a collective level, or is it all just individually experienced?
No, it's definitely on a collective level, and there's like a formula to that. The more connected to your source energy you are, the more connected that you are to the central source of your being, the more your own personal individual beliefs create your reality. The less connected you are, the more subjected you are to the collective. So it's not just that your beliefs create reality, your beliefs plus the energy behind the beliefs, behind the being that has the beliefs, is the formula that creates the reality. Otherwise, you're totally subjected to the collective pattern, that we're currently incarnated within.
All right. Okay, I get that. And so I'm going to challenge it with the overall religions and beliefs. Like, for example, and we're just looking at negative entities. And today we're going to talk about some positive entities too, and how that operates as well, and how it's different than from the other level, a thought form creation, as well as other outside entities. So let's look at a collective belief system here of, say, like what they call the demonic being, the overlord, black lord, Moloch, or whatever the definition of Satan would be, right?
Hmm.
That would, like, I never had a definition of that. So on an individual level, I didn't manifest or create that, but
Hmm.
apparently maybe I did because I'm part of this collective. Would that be an example of how a collective created this overall? Because most people, when you say, do you know who Satan is? And of course has their own definition of that. But on a collective level, wouldn't that be a manifestation of that? Or am I off on that?
No, you're right on with that, and it's been fed a lot of mental, energy. So if you come across a manifestation of Satan, it's going to be able to give you a lot more trouble than just a random demon that from within your own energy or something else that you came across. But any one human being connected to their source is far more powerful than that. Because it's a lighter energy, it's a lesser energy. It was thought formed from mankind, so it's our child. Like it's our, it's not, it doesn't hold anything over us except our beliefs that it does, which were the original beliefs that began to spawn it. I would say that day one, when the human spirit incarnated into a body, we began to know fear, and that we began to unconsciously manifest negative entities. As soon as we started playing the survival game, the possibility of death, of experiencing pain, we began to know fear. And so it all started in very ancient primitive man before we could even speak. So just it's no surprise that it developed like this.
Yeah.
And it may seem senseless or baseless, but we grow a lot from all of these experiences that we have. We grow in ways that we never could have if we weren't exposed to it.
Contrast. I mean, we grow through
Yeah.
contrast, and the question is, are we to the point, evolved to the point where we're going to still grow through contrast through pain, or are we going to grow through contrast through love? And I think
Right.
that's kind of where the fork in the road where humanity is right about now.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so define this a little bit, and I know you guys want to get into the definition of different type of entities, and we are. Trust me, I did some research on this, and it's fascinating. I'm looking forward to Michael's take on it too. But let's look back from a collective, conscious, religious belief system. Okay, this is kind of a general belief system of the fall. the fall of the dark angel Lucifer and of, say, archangels Michael and the gang, people will label them as, and I truly believe people tap into, like I just interviewed a lady, Daniel Gibbons, who says she's channels through Mother Mary. And, I believe her, just from my experience. Although I believe channeling before. But, I mean, the point being is there is this fall of negative entities, let's say, and a positive entity. Some people say negative aliens, angels, negative, positive angels. It doesn't matter to me however everyone define it, but why is that such a common theme in our collective consciousness of a belief, almost across religions? Almost across religions, they discuss some aspect of this separation, right? And why is that such a common theme if it's not defining perhaps a real reality of what actually occurred or experienced or is occurring simultaneously?
Well, I think it's an echo of what we actually did to incarnate here, to become a part of this experience. Is we fell. We came into density. We compressed ourselves from eternal, immortal spirit and a lighter energy. We compressed ourselves to this level that we don't yet have mastery over. So we're subjected ourselves to all sorts of pain and death and suffering. So I think when in the early days, when this first started opening up, when people would have experiences and start going out of the body, that they were shown the process by which they came in here and just understood it in the way that they could. It's important to note that you can experience anything while out of your body, and it's all true, but we need to redefine our definition of real and true, because everything's true, everything's real. It's a question of how true is it and how real is it, and that's determined by the density of energy behind the thought form. Everything is a thought form. Our human body is a thought form, but it's a stronger thought than our consciousness can currently own or be one with. Otherwise, we'd have complete control of our bodies. So just because you experience something while out of your body doesn't mean that it's true in a sense of, yeah, this is where we came from. Like a lesser reality than ours cannot tell us the story of how this reality came to be, because these lighter, less real realities are spawned from here. That they're echoes of this. They're not the source of it. And another thing, without going too deep into it, to note is time. The way time works, it's not linear. It's a spherical thing, and it operates in different densities, like gears on a clock. So when you're out of your body, I think we discussed this on the last show, a whole week, 2 weeks can pass, and only an hour passes here when you come back to your body. That's a lighter energy. So the lighter or less real energy that you're in, there's going to be more passage of time per passage of time on Earth when you're in a lesser reality system. So to actually get information from a greater reality system than ours, where we could actually begin to get truths that would relate to our reality or even be a master truth by comparison to ours, is damn near impossible. Because if you were to spend even 5 minutes in a greater truth reality than ours, a whole week could pass here. Because of the way time works. So there's like a veil, a very real veil in that way, and life is still a mystery.
Well, and
in that way,
and I can see that completely, and maybe that kind of brings the next question up: is linear times are reality of ours right now? What you just said in reference to how that occurs and why it occurs, the veils of reality that we got to deal with. Maybe are we maybe not meant to focus on that aspect? Are we not meant to go out of the body all the time? Are we, maybe there's a reason why these parameters are in our life to deal with perhaps something else? It may be that I'm sure it just wasn't a coincidence that they appeared. These parameters are there for a certain level of growth, let's say, right? But what purpose do you think they are there for?
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, and I've come to the conclusion that out-of-body travel is for rest and recreation. It's to I call that waking up. I don't call that ascending, reconnecting to all the light realms. That's just waking up. That's remembering that you're pure consciousness. You're more than just a human body. You are consciousness that's adapting and growing itself through forms. There's other forms, other bodies that you have, lighter bodies, so on and so forth. We're here on Earth trying to master a greater density of energy, a greater level of form than we currently can, and that's why we don't have control of our bodies yet, because it's more energy per square inch than our consciousness can currently handle. It's a human body is so much energy. But yeah, I do believe that the biggest part of our growth is to be here in the body, to get more consciousness into the body, so much so that we begin to experience soul expansion. We begin to fill up beyond the nervous system, expand beyond the soul, and start to unify with the molecular structure of the body and the molecular structure of the elemental world around us. I think that is our biggest growth. That's the biggest way that we can grow, and that the out-of-body stuff is mostly for rest and recreation. If you start getting hung up on thinking that you're going to receive wisdom when you're out of your body, then you're in for a very long ride.
Well, it's fascinating. So you see the experience is having that ability to go outside of our body structure, our soul entity within ourselves, as more of an awaking opportunity to realize or recognition or recognizing that, yes, we are a spirit and we have the ability to do much more than we perhaps been told as a kid with our body and through our indoctrination of education system. I mean, just think if they were teaching this in school about, out-of-body experiences, telepathy, and things like that, where our society on a collective would be. It seems like we're so retarded in the sense of slowed down that that we're just so we limit ourselves, and it's I think there's a purpose for that, is for us to the point where we're forced to go within to find out this awakening, because we're not getting our answers outside. But at the same time, what a society we'd have if we were a little more willing to bring these type of understandings, or at least challenge ourselves to critical think on this level as a collective we'd be today. But I digress. All right, so we're going to take a break. And then when we get back from break, let's get into some definitions of these entities. Let's first start with some of the negative entities, the different types. And one of the questions we had is operational definition of entities. You could be thinking about that and how that interacts with us. And then we'll get into some positive entities as well and take it from there. Okay, Michael?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back with Michael Monk talking about defining our reality. Be right back. Institute, if you want to reach him, and I definitely recommend, because this man has had some experiences, and we're going to get some of his experiences too. You can reach him at avatarenergymaster.com, avatarenergymaster.com. And I do want to get, we'll talk about these entities, and we'll talk about the Max, I think it's Max Spear experience he had, and how similar experience you had, what he had. But let's talk about first, I'm going to lay out 5 different definitions of different types of entities, and maybe as you go through them, you could talk about how more some are in the thought creation process within our own reality, some are more in the collective reality, and some are outside of our collective reality. Okay, if you can even define them more so. All right, the first one, which you've been talking about earlier, was they define this people define out there as the etheric parasites. And they are generated by human thought infused with emotion and intent. And the next one is discarnated humans. On those who have died in the recent past but have not fully faded out, bodies that turn into non-physical parasites, or what you see as ghosts, right? Ghosts out there. Then you have human entity attachments. Creates a that's what they are. The human entity creates a personal overlay of the human hosts. And then you have what people call, some of the attachments are the worst than others. I hate to put a worse on there, but I guess more scarier, let's say, is the alien entity attachments. And these are supposedly because they're placed into a person intentionally for a purpose of monitoring, energy feeding, manipulation, whereas human entity attachments merely create human personality overlays and common vices, people in positions of power and influence who are useful to the alien agenda. And then the last one they talk about is the demonic attachments. The worst attachment of all are the demonic ones. Assured then they say they're not sure of the true origins of these demons. Maybe they are thought forms created by the collective negativity of humanity throughout the ages. Maybe they are left over from the creation of the universe. Maybe they were physical beings who advanced so far along the negative path that they have transcended their physical bodies and took up residence in the darkest recesses of the lower astral plane. But those are the kind of 4 different categories. Is any other operational definitions you want to add to that, or you want to just go with those that we mentioned?
No, that's fine there.
Okay. So take which one you wanted first.
Well, they're all basically they're all the same thing. They're all basically what we've already talked about. They're just different levels of realism within it. Like the last one is no different than the first one. It's just been collectively fed enough belief and enough power to be a lot more solid, a lot more real than the first one, which was, the psychic parasites. Just a lesser fed version of the same thing, like the parable about the 2 wolves. The one that you feed is the one that that ends up growing. So with the extraterrestrials, and this is a huge topic on its own, and my view on this is a bit different than most, though I think there are quite a few that vibe with the way that I've seen it, and that is that the human form, the human body, is the universal embodiment, and that's trickled down through many channels. But what does that mean? Well, that means that the human body is the source of the physical universe, that divine pattern in the nerve fiber system by which our soul energy manifests this reality is what manifests the ground that you walk on, the sun that shines on you, the stars over your head, the air that you breathe. Everything is created by soul energy flowing in, through, and out of the nerve fiber system and into the world. Reality truly comes from within, just like all the ancient masters, including Buddha and Rumi and others, have said since the beginning. It's all within. And that's well, funny to say it this way, but that's a big pill to swallow for a lot of people. But it's been my experience, and I can't go against it. So when I look up at the stars in the night sky, I can feel their location within my mind. Each star that I see has a correlating location within my being, and when you find that, you'll start to channel, or you'll start to access intelligence. You can see with clairvoyance that there's a thin little silvery thread connecting all the stars. It's like a neural network. It's like a divine, or it's like an expanded version of our very mind. It's like a web of consciousness itself, and the stars are exactly what they appear to be. They're little tiny pinpoints of light. Or information. They're neural networks. They're like little information centers within an expanded version of our mind. Now that's what they are from the physical perspective. Okay, if I go out of my body, that tiny little pinpoint of light can become an entire solar system with planets, with beings on it that I can visit, so on and so forth. But compared to here, the stars are just little pinpoints of light. So we are the aliens. What I've seen after thousands of out-of-body experiences is that every single human has an aspect of consciousness on every single star world in the night sky. So you have an inner reptilian, you have an inner Arcturian, you have an inner Pleiadian. Every single species of consciousness that exists in the spiritual and physical universes, we have an aspect of ourselves within that. The human, the God-man, Hu means God. So I say these things to help people realize just exactly what they are, what it means to be a human, because it's very special. Just doesn't seem so because we are asleep. We aren't awakened to the truth of our being. But in terms of energy, of massive energy, of density that we hold within our being, we are source compared to all of these extraterrestrial consciousness that may seem like they're far more advanced than us, because many of them are not asleep. They're awakened to their energy. So they are multidimensional. They can time travel in thought and move through the universe, but so can any awakened human. It's really no big deal at all. So they'll encounter like a reptilian out of their body and see this thing shape shifting or jumping through dimensions or time traveling and be like, oh my God, that's a fifth dimensional reptilian entity. Like, what could I do against that? Well, it's nothing. It's made of a lighter energy than you are, and sure, it's skipping through time, but so what? You can too if you just learn, reconnect to the truth of your being and understand how things are. So we absolutely, we have an extraterrestrial aspect on every single star world that there is. And when people are channeling, that's what they're doing. They're like when someone channels the Pleiadians or channels the Arcturians, they're connecting to that part of the divine mind and thinking from that perspective. So that perspective is communicating back to this perspective.
Wow, that, Michael, is just fascinating. And I know people have to replay to really hear what you just said, but basically what I'm picking up is that we wouldn't. Everything's a hall of mirrors. We wouldn't be able to recognize and communicate to these other entities, these alien entities, as you listen through, unless we first recognize them within ourselves. And a lot of it goes in line to what I've read about in reference to how we're just a mixture of DNA of all these different types of aliens at one point, But that's more bringing into the more physical three-dimensional world, which we will. We're going to go there in a little bit with. We're going to go over philosophy first, and then we're going to bring how this philosophy interacts with the three-dimensional world and some of Michael's experience in the three-dimensional world via being the infinite self that he's realized. So. That I just find that fascinating, and so there is that sense of outside alien, but really it's another creation of our own self because we're connected to that. We see that, but they're just like we're co-creating. Like you and I are co-creating, and people listening are co-creating. I'm creating my own reality, but you're creating your own reality too. And for whatever period of time, we're doing this together. Like for this next hour, we're doing this together, and you're going to go off co-creating other things that I'm not going to be part of, or at least I'm not going to be conscious of. I may be part of, but I'm not conscious of, let's say. It's tremendous information. So with that, now you go to the level of so you're saying all these entities, these definitions of different types of entities are really all the same energy source, but more mental definition, more energy and thought focus has been put into some of the other ones, all the way down to demonic ones, which seem to get a lot of our attention. In fact, it gets a lot of our attention more so today than ever before. And so again, you're saying once again, you're saying that these demonic entities of our creation, it's just that on a collective conscious level, we have fed it more energy than perhaps need be. If we were aware of our power and our energy, we would want to feed it more positive energy. And or because who wants to have a Moloch running around the world, snatching children and eating them? Who wants that? No one does, right? So we have basically allowed our thought processes and our fears manifest thought forms to the point where it's gave a much heavier density reality that now we're seeing appearing in our three-dimensional world. Is that about right?
Yep. I call all of the different grades of entities that you've described, they're all spirits to me. So once again, a spirit to me, in my definition, and I sort of like mine because I've simplified it.
I like it too.
A spirit is an aspect of a soul. A spirit is a direct, purposeful creation of a soul. And a soul knows itself as being unified with the source, or with God, if you prefer that definition, and knows itself as existing outside of any space or time projection, and is capable of creating new spirits at will. That's what a soul is. And then a spirit is created or projected from a soul. So when we start out this life, like before I connected to energy, I was a spirit. I knew myself as being one thing. I am Michael Monk. That is what I am. A spirit only knows itself as being one thing. Now I have a soul that projected me, but me, my personality, my spirit, Michael Monk, connected the dots, went all the way back into that soul and became that soul. So I now know myself as being a soul. And in that way, my personality that I've brought back into soul has colored that, has changed or just colored the way that my soul perceives itself. And then the third kind is fragments, or an aspect of a spirit. So a spirit, through its thought, can also create extensions of itself, but not at the same level that a soul can. So a soul can make a genuine spirit that one day is going to be able to be a soul itself. A spirit can't do that. A spirit can make little fragments, little aspects, but it can't create new eternal life. So the only destiny of these little tiny fragments created by spirits is to one day be reabsorbed back into the spirit that created them. Because a spirit is basically not universally licensed to create new life, if you want to use that terminology. And thank God, or we would have to deal with demons and devils and who knows what else.
Right. Well, we're going to take another quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about dealing with demons, devils, and whatever else in our three-dimensional world, and what does that look like. And then we're eventually going to end the show on loving our demons, and the way out is the way of Michael Monk, Avatar Master. We'll be right back. Right, we are back with Michael Monk, founder of the Avatar Energy Master Institute. You can reach him at avatarenergymaster.com, avatarenergymaster.com, and we're talking about entities. We're talking about defining reality here. And so let's just kind of jump let's stay here in the three-dimensional world. I appreciate your definition of the philosophy of where we are and the different definitions of different entities and how it's thought-provoked and how we give more energy and thought into different levels, which makes them, it separates them from others because it's our level of focus we give that energy, basically. So let's look at what's going on in the Bohemian Groves and the Moloch and the satanic pedophilia going on right now, the sex trafficking rings. And I don't want to get too far into it other than because there's so many different shows on that. But we're starting to realize just through WikiLeaks alone that, there's this satanic possession going on. I mean, you talk about top leaders, whether you want to call them weak constitutions or they have, been possessed or they allow themselves to give themselves to the different levels of entities that we describe for these other entities to soul feed on them for the riches and notice and the 15 minutes of fame that they receive here this lifetime. So this is a physical reality of a thought form gone awry, in my opinion, that now we've given physical manifestation to these things to the point where other humans, such as you and I, are now being possessed to do the bidding of these darker forces or these thought form forces that we created on a collective level on our own selves. It's like the monster has come back to feed on our own creation. Frankenstein has come back home to kill the Dr. Frankenstein, So, and I know you'd have a solution for that, but talk to how this is a reality that we got to deal with now in the sense of what's going on, because even though everything's an illusion, but if your child was taken to in a satanic occult, ritually tortured, bled, sexually abused, and then killed, we would have a different perspective on things at this point, or we'd be more engaged in the three-dimensional world. I mean, I know I would be, my emotions would have the best of me. So, I mean, this is potential reality that people are experiencing. And I get the spiritual aspect that they chose to experience this for whatever reason. But, who wants a society of this? Who wants a society of these vampires? I mean, I don't. I know most people don't if they believe this is happening. So, how do you deal with this reality?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't want that either. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to understand the inner workings of the Illuminati or whatever names have been ascribed to these things. It may very well be that the dark energies that were fed the most by humans were able to deceive or possess certain humans. It may be that way, or it may also be the way of, well, these guys are actually pretty well awaken, know that the power is within themselves, and yet they choose to carry out dark manipulative schemes on humanity. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know what's going on inside the minds of beings like this, though I have interacted with them in psychic warfare. but they would definitely pose the greatest danger to anybody else. Another human that's simultaneously incarnated here in our web of collective that has desire to psychically carry out harm on other humans would be the number one threat, in all of this, because they're real. They're far more real than some lighter dimensional, things. So yeah, once again, I don't know if they're under illusion from a mass thought form demonic entity named Satan, or whether they understand the types of things that I do and are just running the show from a very dark place.
Right.
Hard to say there.
No, I
And
think that's a great way to put it in perspective, because I don't think many people don't know. I mean, I have no idea either. I just kind of follow the facts of what's been going on, and I try to define it as we go forward. But why don't you share a little bit of your experiences? I know people knew about Max Spear, I think his name is. I should have looked up his name, but he was killed or died a little while ago because he was on a hunt trying to define reality, and I think he got into the alien aspect of it, which or the satanic aspect of it, which led, like you said, the real threat there led to his demise. But it was such a controversial death that I think, and if you go online, check it out, he was vomiting this black substance. And they don't know how he died, just the black substance. But I remember you talked a little bit about your experience. Is that something that you feel comfortable sharing? Went through something that...
Yeah, maybe not too many of the absolute specific details, but I wouldn't mind sharing a little bit on that. So yeah, Max Spears was found dead with a thick, viscous black fluid coming out of his nose and mouth. And before then, he was talking about being under psychic attack by the dark forces, Illuminati, whatever names you want to call them. And he was doing events and shows where he was disclosing information that he had about how they operate. So that was very, very real to him, for sure, very, very real. And I experienced something similar, and I'm going to say it twice, once before I go into it and once when I get out, that the beliefs do create the reality that we experience. But there's more to it than just that. It's beliefs plus the level of energy that you're connected to. So before I say any of this, I want to emphatically state that you have power to choose what you experience. That just because something is real doesn't mean that you should believe in it. Just because your beliefs create reality. The more you look within, the more you tap into your energy, the more your own thought structure is going to dictate what you experience in your immediate reality. So use that wisely. So just because so-and-so can prove, hey, this is real, I've actually met it, I've experienced it, doesn't mean that you over here in your reality need to adopt that into your own paradigm, because then you're more likely to experience. So the best thing you can do in all of this is, connect to your energy and use proper beliefs, because ultimately that's how I got out of it. And the more I was willing to believe in this crap, the more intense and the more serious that it got, to a point where I could have proved to anybody that this is real, and then cause them to start, experiencing it too, which can, be a very cyclical effect there. But there was a mass awakening that I had about 3 years ago, where my energy switches kicked on to such a degree that even I, after years and years of developing my nervous system, I wasn't ready for. I was like perfectly connected with no veil whatsoever. I was in a fifth dimensional state, which means I was aware of the 3D reality, but I was also aware of fifth dimensional reality right on top of the 3D. So I could be looking at a setting sun and say, you know what, no, it's noon, and the sun would go right up and be noon, but I could still see the physical sun there, but, fifth dimensional one right above my head. In this connective state, I was able to feel everybody's thought. So if any person would have a negative thought about me, it would instantly manifest as a demon or a parasite in my body. So I was at such a high degree of connection that I was just aware of what's happening, like all the time on a daily basis. But I think the signals that I was broadcasting, the depth that I was connected into, I think I drew the attention of incarnated humans with a dark agenda. I don't even like giving them a name, but they tapped into me and did pretty much everything in their ability to try to manipulate my head or absorb me into their soul mass, to have me, become a part of them, to be magnetically absorbed into their being. And I fought and fought really hard, and I had the tools to be able to do that from all the energy work that I've done, all the previous spiritual warfare that I've conducted. And the way that I ended up winning out was to unify myself with the source consciousness, to be able to see all beings as being an extension of my being, and using the love force, which is the attractive force, the ability to go deep within myself by loving myself enough, and then to be able to love all things external to myself as self, thereby causing an inward magnetic field that where if anything was in my energy field trying to mess with me, it would get pulled so far into my center that it would have two choices: become me, or book it out of there as fast as you can.
He is so Neo. I mean, that's just like when you know what in the Matrix. You know how the Neo finally at the when he's like they put their hands in this chest and that guy absorbs. Mr. Smith absorbs the people. Neo did the same thing. He let him absorb him because then he just totally took on that that's really the answer on everything. It's tapping into the God, loving, compassionate source, and letting that fill yourself up. And yes, you don't have to focus on these negative entities, but in our reality, it's occurring. And if we could learn, and as you're saying, Taryn, we could talk about it now, learning to love your demons, and that's a perfect example of it. You're not going out and loving what the demons' behavior or these demonic or these possessed people behavior they're doing. You're not taking on that level of the appreciation or love. In fact, you're doing just the opposite. You're loving the creation that you involved in that part, and you're bringing them back to source. You're connecting them back to source. And we had Dr. Can on a little while ago, and she was saying, you got a lot of these lower level outside our frequency entities who are working for some of these darker lords. Like you said, the more the awakened, or the emperor, like in Star Wars, they're awakened of their power, but they choose to use their power for dark forces rather than for light. So they're awakened. They know the force, but they're using the force for bad. And or we would consider dark. And the the Obi-Wan Kenobis out there, and you could be Obi-Wan Kenobi. How about that? We call you Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the Obi-Wan Kenobis out there realize their power, and they're using it for light. And I would assume that this is the old battle that's been going on from day one: is the dark versus the love. But embracing that love, loving the demons, is you're loving yourself and bringing them that love energy. You're looking at more, as Dr. Can says, a younger brother or a relative that's gone awry, that's started getting into the drugs and crime, and you don't want them to go through that. You want to bring them back in. And a lot of these entities want that. They want to be total light. They want source, but they're so under mind control of these darker forces, they don't realize that all they have to do is connect to source, and they don't have to live that life or be in that frequency or live that. Even humans who are been possessed, let's say, through these forces, don't have to honor these contracts that they have in their mind. They can let it go anytime they want once they embrace source and love, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I say love your demons, but you have to love them as self, with no separation. What you can't see them as something separate than you and send them a little Christmas present, a little love package, and just carry on as you are, and I love you no matter what, because then they're still they're not even going to feel that. They can't even sense love in that way, so it's just going to go right over their heads, and they're going to keep doing their thing. So you got to connect to them, accept them as self, and bring them home, because the spirit can't make new life anyhow. Only a soul can do that. So it's not like they're your child and they're going to grow and develop and one day become their own soul. They're a miscreant, a mismanifestation from a being that's basically not licensed to make new eternal life yet. It hasn't been given that. Only a soul can do that. So we need to accept all negative energy, all negative entities as being self, and love it as self to reunify it into the whole.
And that's what you mean by integration work.
Integration, yes. The willingness and the ability to see it as self and to love it as self, and thereby integrate it into the whole. There's nothing more powerful than that. Nothing more powerful than that. Nothing can stand to it, because, well, let's just say, and I'll just use the word Illuminati. Let's say a member of the Illuminati wanted to mess with me right now. They would have to project their consciousness out of their body, so they would be projecting away from their core, away from their energy center, and they would have to project to mine. And they would start out here in my lighter energy, because energy gets progressively lighter, just like a candle. You know, it has levels of aura on the flame, progressively lighter the further away from center. So to get to me, something else has to leave its center and approach mine. The only way it can mess with me is through mental deception, to confuse me, to get me to come out of my center, to come where it is, where it can have some power over me. But knowing what I know, I can just be like, yeah, whatever. You know, I can just open up, stay in my center, and start using gravity to pull it into mine. So it's no longer in its center. It's left its power point to come towards mine. And I'm just like, fine, welcome home. Bring it right in. And then it has two choices. It'll dissolve and know itself as being me, cease to be a fragment of it, or it leaves, gets out of there and goes back and never comes back. But otherwise, whatever human dark force member did that, they would just lose whatever energy they projected out of their body to mess with me. They would just be feeding me.
They become less powerful.
And I become more powerful.
But just like Star Wars is so advanced, you know, and that's what people talk about, the power of Christ. The power of Christ, or the, you know, Buddha, whatever love energy you want to focus, frequency, that's incorporating within yourself, because you can't get any more loving than that. I mean, it's you know, I'm not saying the traditional definition of that, but I'm just saying that energy flow, that love, is incorporating and absorbing and transmuting. It's literally transmuting a negative entity into a loving entity, or a negative entity back to home where it started from. Or like you said, it goes as an unbounded spirit and tries to focus on other people, perhaps not so connected strongly to source.
Right.
So just another reason why believing in God, Goddess, all there is, Jesus, Buddha, whatever your source of energy is so critical at this point in time. Not just out of fear, but understanding that we're creating our own reality. And as we create this reality, we have the ability to bring any creation home, absorb it, and through love and not through fear. And when people like Michael and Teal Swan and Dr. Karen Can and thousands of others talk about loving the demons, it's loving, tapping into source and absorbing and transmuting that energy that's gone awry, that we kind of, through separation, let occur. Not only on an individual basis, Michael, but also on a collective basis, too.
We have a question on the chat.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Mountaineer on the chat is asking what research he's done to obtain the data that supports the existence of these entities, if they're real, and where he can read it.
Probably, you got to get in Michael's head, his experiences, but, you know, go ahead, Michael. You could answer it if you want.
Yeah, everything that I share comes from direct experience. I've had thousands of out-of-body experiences, and ask anybody that knows me, I eat, sleep, drink, energy.
What would be your advice for people like Mountaineer? Because I'm sure there's thousands of them who are very, you know, mind, intellect set and mind-based, who perhaps don't have out-of-body experiences. This is the first time they're ever experiencing this, and they're so conditioned on understanding how you got to have, you know, the scientific method to prove different things, you know, and not understand the limitation to that. But what would you be advice for people like him?
For people that have a solid intellectual base, I would recommend the Seth material, the Seth channeling by Jane Roberts. Of all the material that I've read, this is the only material that I haven't had to flush down the mental toilet. The more I open up to experiences and see how things really are, most of the books that I had read were a hindrance to me and not a help. I would unread them if I could. But the Seth material, it just keeps lining up. Everything that this channeled entity says, the more I experience, I go, well, yeah, that's backed up there. And it's very intellectual. It'll make good sense. Seth is really good for intellectually explaining all of this stuff. I'm really good for giving you techniques to begin to experience it.
Right.
But yeah, if you're intellectual based, check out the Seth material. Start with the book Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts.
Read that years ago. I was back in the 1970s, and I agree. I forgot a lot of it, but I thought it really helped me kind of go down the road where I'm going too.
Yeah, my O'Neill, kind of a skeptic. He's now saying, how do you know you aren't misunderstanding what you're experiencing?
It could be, right?
Well, of course I could. I mean, it's definitely possible. But I'm a pretty smart guy, and I've had thousands of these experiences, not just a few. Most people that have written books or created religions had a few out-of-body experiences and formed all of their ideology around that. I had thousands, and I was very careful and didn't jump to any conclusions. So there's definitely a chance that I'm, that I don't have it straight.
Sure.
But I think I do.
And this is your reality, and you're sharing your reality with us. And really, to really define that, I think that's probably the healthiest perspective, because you're creating your own reality every day. And whatever experiences you have, if you're having thousands of out-of-body experiences, you maybe have similar experiences as Michael Monk or people like Dr. Thomas Campbell, the Monroe Institute, who does out-of-body experiences, or you may have experiences as anyone else who's tapping into their multi-sensory self and getting past this 5-sensory human being. But it's going to be your experience, and I think that's what's most important. Is this awakening, Michael, in my opinion, is we're always looking for a superhuman to come save the day. And I think this awakening is us to realize, as you said, the power of our own superhuman skill set, ability, and to realize we're spirit and we have the ability to create. We're souls. We create. These other lower level density beings are not creating, they're responding to our creation. And we have the ability to create and the ability to take back, or absorb, let's say. And I think we have to realize that that is a individual experience. You got to experience that on an individual level. Your connection to source, God, goddess, all there is, whatever you want to say, is your individual experience. And no one, not you nor me or anyone else there, is going to be able to tell somebody or convince somebody different unless they try that experience themselves.
Oh,
And
for
I think it's good to be a skeptic. But I think you should be a skeptic and be curious and go out and challenge yourself. And as Ike says, be open-minded but light on your feet. These are the days that we need to be open-minded and light on our feet, because things are very fluid and dynamic at this point.
Everything that I share verbally is just to give, hints and suggestions that maybe you could be experiencing this too.
Yeah.
And then if you check out, the only thing I want anybody to trust is their own experience.
Right.
I mean,
it's pretty obvious.
There's nothing else worth trusting. And then as to whether I'm right about the order of things that I've generated, it's been my experience that when I saw things this way, I was able to take power over it, take control. I've even been around like extraterrestrial circles, like the kinds that summon UFOs, like real UFOs in the night sky that you can see with your eyes. And I had suspicions that these were aspects, these were spirits that were channeled in. I was able to connect into these so-called UFOs and decide where they would go next with my mind. And
that proves to you that you were the designer behind the design.
Yeah, the whole group was, but they're sitting here like giving obeisance, like thinking this is advanced consciousness that one day is going to land that ship and take them home, when really it's just a spirit, an aspect of soul that was channeled into this reality as an overlap.
Wow, fascinating. We take one more quick break, and then Michael, if you could think about, if you mind doing a quick intention or meditation, like a 1-minute meditation, just kind of incorporating. Are you comfortable doing that? Incorporating a little bit what we talked about and how source is our answer here, and that love frequency. All right, we'll be right back with Michael Monk on the Wake Up Hour, waking you up and pulling your head out of the sand and dealing with what's in front of you. All right, we'll be right back. You could reach Michael he's also founder of Avatar Energy Master Institute. You can reach him at avatarenergymaster.com, avatarenergymaster.com. And so let's close the show out. And we always like on the Wake Up Hour, we like to leave on a very positive note and understanding that we are the creators of our reality, co-creators of reality, and we have the ability to shift and change our perception and change our reality and be and for the better and for whatever we want to experience. You want to experience dark experiences, then you will experience dark experiences through fear. You want to experience positive, beautiful experiences, you experience that through love. And we like to end on a love note, because you know what? Love more fun, is it not?
And it's easier too.
And it's easier too, right? I like to have fun, and I can't have fun with those other guys. I gotta have fun with people who are in love. All right, Michael, go ahead, take it home.
Okay, I want everybody to have their feet flat on the floor and your hands resting comfortably in your lap. You don't want your feet touching. You don't want your hands touching because that creates a closed loop. We want to stay open. So hands relaxed on the lap, feet flat on the floor. Yeah. Go ahead and close your eyes and really relax your visual consciousness, because that's important. Even though your eyes are closed, if you're straining too hard to keep your eyes closed, then you're creating unnecessary tension in the headspace. So really relax the eyeballs as much as you can without having your eyelids open back up. And then just become aware of the presence within your skull, within your mind, that you're holding, your awareness of self in the center of your mind. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drain that right down the neck and into the heart. We're going to change that centered focal point of awareness into a heart-based focus. Now this can be as easy as imagining that your thoughts come from the center of your chest instead of from your mind. So try that with me real quick. Just imagine that your thoughts come from the center of your chest, and then purposefully think a thought and feel it originating from the heart. I mean, it can be any thought, even something silly like the green cat jumped over the moon. Just think a thought, but originate it from the center of your heart instead of from within your head. Okay, good. I can feel a general overall connection to everybody taking part in this, and I felt a lot of people make a good connection to the heart by doing that. So now we're also going to use a visualization. Your chest is a warm frying pan, and your head is a stick of butter. And start to let whatever presence you still have left inside your head melt right down into your heart. Now, your heart has an intelligence that's more vast than the brain, and even science understands it. I forget the exact numbers, but it's something like 10,000 times more magnetically strong and 100,000 electrically stronger than the brain is. So it may seem like you're letting go of an important part of your being by being heart focused, but you're establishing the proper order of things. You're supposed to lead with the heart and follow with the ego or the brain. Okay, now we're going to center our breath within our heart. So breath is a psychological symbol that we use to move energy. In the physical body, it's a psychological symbol that we use to open and close our diaphragm to cause air to flow. But from a soul level, it's nothing more or less than just a psychological symbol to move energy, and you can use breath to move energy from anywhere to anywhere. So you do this through imagination. So I just want you to imagine that the center of your chest, the center of your heart, is your breath force, and that the motion of breathing draws in energy from all around you 360 degrees into the very center of your chest. And I want you to do this with love. So you thought form anything that you relate to love. If you have a daughter that means more to you than anything in the world, think of her as you open up your heart to the connecting space around you and breathe in. If it's your pet dog, your grandfather, whatever, use any psychological symbol that you relate to pure love, open up to the energies around you, and breathe it into the center of your heart. And then on the exhale, just detach. No connection to energy on the exhale, just physical breath. And on the inhale, reconnect to energy, connect to the space all around you. Use the thought form of maximizing love, whatever it is to you, and breathe it all in. Feel it accumulate, accumulate, accumulate. Exhale, no emphasis. Reconnect to the love, connect it to energy. Breathe in 360 degrees. Feels great, doesn't it? And this is an exercise that you should do at least a couple times a day for a few minutes. Now, while we have this connection to the heart and to our own ideas of love, I'm going to ask the source consciousness in whatever way that people are ready for to manifest itself from deep within the heart, which is where it comes from, and to show you guys your connection to it for whatever level you're ready on. So I ask that now, and I'm just going to go quiet and leave everybody with their individual experiences. Okay, we can open our eyes and come out of it at your own pace.
Namaste, Michael. That was beautiful. And if you haven't done that and you want to do it again, just play it back. We're on Facebook Live. You can play that back. We'll be putting this up on YouTube as well, and of course Spreaker and iHeartRadio and all the other Blog Talk we're on as well. So and also go online and download our app, UI Radio Network, on the App Store. Go to the App Store; it's free. UI Radio Network. Michael, listen, it's been a pleasure. Hang on for a second if you can. And
Sure.
it was a pleasure having you. And once again, I think this is a remarkable show, man. This is gonna be a great show, and we'll get the links out to set it out too as well. And I think humanity really could benefit from looking from a bigger picture philosophy here. Whether you believe it or not, you don't have to. Like Michael says, this is your belief. You believe what you believe, and don't take these things as the end all. However, we're in a collective consciousness, and if you're listening right now, there's a reason why you're listening. And challenge yourself. Be a skeptic. Challenge yourself, and do your own work. Do your own have your own experiences, and come to your own conclusions. But this may just be for some of you a wake up to some of these things that you've been kind of thinking about but never really put thought into. Well, now's an opportunity to do that. And remember, love is the only way out, and love is the answer, and not just a corny little saying, as the Beatles would say, but love is really the answer. Again, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it, and we'll have you back here next month. I'm looking forward to it.
My honor, guys. It's awesome to be here. Namaste and God bless.
Namaste. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great, today's Friday? Woohoo! Friday. We have a crazy week. We have Steve Taylor's coming on. He works with Eckhart Tolle next week. I'm so looking forward to that. And some of the other interviews we're doing. I don't even know. I can't even keep up with it anymore. But anyway, thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.